It literally is just as on the nose as that shirt could be, dude. That's so funny. That's pretty sick. I literally said a dual shield monk too. How cool. All right, I'm in. I'm fucking sold. This is so sick. Let's talk about Berlin FanFest. Before I get into that, I'm gonna do my best to make this as spoiler friendly as possible. I will not be talking about anything main scenario or the actual story related, because if you wanted to consume that, you would just consume it on your own. I want to talk about more of what's coming in the game and less about the story itself. I'm personally the type of guy who likes to enjoy it organically, so I'll leave that out. And for themes of any of the new raids and stuff, I will either omit that or I will put a spoiler warning beforehand so you can skip ahead if you want to. And I'll make sure to leave the chapter markers because I do want to be spoiler friendly. Spoiler free friendly? You know what I mean. Let's get into it. I do want to say this on the outset. I did attend in person Anaheim FanFest, NA FanFest, excuse me, and a lot of the things that I wanted more details about based on that, I did not get from Berlin FanFest. I won't lie to you, I'm a little disappointed about that, but I get it. There's likely a reason. It could be behind in the development cycle. You were hoping to have more footage. There's also quite a bit of content to cover. There's a lot of, we talked about this in North America and we will talk about it more in Tokyo, that I'm not the biggest fan of. I have been kind of looking forward to a lot of things being elaborated on, and like none of those got elaborated on. If you end up watching my Twitch VOD, you will see my disappointment was a bit high. But that doesn't mean the FanFest content was bad by any stretch. I just had things I was looking forward to hearing more about, and that's okay. I will get my turn. At least I hope so. And I will be live streaming Tokyo FanFest simultaneously, just like I did for Berlin, when that occurs in October. So if you're looking for somebody to watch and discuss with, that's exactly what we were doing last night, this morning. It was like 1 a.m. for me. So drop a follow. Each topic that I cover, I'm going to be talking about the facts that we were given and probably sharing a little bit of opinions. If you have thoughts around it, feel free to leave those thoughts in the comments. As most of you know who have been here for a while, I do my best to answer just about every comment because I enjoy the discussion. Do keep it healthy, right? I feel like I've had a couple of instances where people are dicks about it. I'm all for healthy discussion and I'm more than happy to disagree with you, but don't be a dick. I don't really care to engage with comments in bad faith. Calling people gigapathetic ain't it. And I'm not even gonna talk about the guy on the dungeon speed video. Anyway, I'm gonna be referring to my phone a lot, by the way, because I have some notes here. So usually I will check some notes, but I'm probably just gonna look at it normally because I feel like that's a little, we're gonna keep the flow moving, right? So the new tank was announced yesterday. Bastion. I would love to hear in the comments how everybody's feeling about it. There were a ton of predictions. For those who have seen previous FanFests, Yoshi P's shirt will usually give hints as to what it might be. Sometimes it's a little more obvious. Like when Dark Knight was announced, he wore a Batman shirt. It's the Dark Knight, makes a ton of sense. Or less obvious, he wore a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles shirt for Picto because all of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are named after artists. Way offbeat. This one was probably the most literal shirt. He's like, this is the glass set. Everybody's like, damn, I wonder what it could be. I'm super excited for it. I'm actually very excited for it. As many know, I'm a tank main. Not for any particular reason. I like a lot of different classes and I just main the role because I don't have to worry about queue times. So having a new main tank is exciting. With that, speaking of main tank, at North America FanFest, they mentioned the tank role being split into main tanks and off tanks. So for those who don't know, similar to pure healers and barrier healers, they have like a designation, but they haven't elaborated on that. That said, the two main tanks are Paladin and the new Bastion tank. Every other tank is an off tank now. A lot of people were unhappy with this. They don't want to think that their tank was relegated to an off tank. Looking at you, warrior mains. You know who you are. I don't really care. I just look at it as a new way to diversify my gameplay style. Now I can have a dedicated, I play Paladin and Gunbreaker as my main tanks. So now I would have been able to diversify anyway, but now I have 2 options in each role, which is what I like to have. But they haven't elaborated on what that split means. They mused about it being main tanks focus on a lot of self-mitigation so that they can focus on the boss and maintaining aggro and keeping themselves alive, and off tanks are more focused on party mitigation and being a resource to allies in some capacity or another. That was more or less all they kind of said about this. So my one frustration with the release and the announcement of Bastion is that it feels like it's doing all of the things. It has tank abilities, of course. It also has ranged abilities, it has defensives, which it should, and then it has heals, but not just for itself, for the party members as well. Now, I also have mentioned in any discussions I've had that it is most likely you can play off tanks in the main tank role as well. It's just that one class is more suited to doing it well than the other class is, so I'm sure they can be interchanged. However, first instinct, without a lot of details, because I'm not the type of person to make a lot of pre-assumptions without having more details around it. But off rip, I don't like that it does all of the things. That's just me. I would rather it have trade-offs. I think the most interesting classes and playstyles are the ones that are really good at something and really bad at something else, because it's meaningful trade-offs for interesting gameplay, for you to have to play around things. That said, I don't know, just based off of the trailer, what this is going to look like. One, because these are all just, you know, a job showcase, and 2, because this is going to be in the evolved system and we have like no details on that yet, which everybody already knows is one of my big gripes that I already kind of expected was going to be the case with this FanFest, is that there's like no details on the combat, when that's like a huge change to the game. But I was discussing it with Cypher and he makes a good point. They probably intended to talk more about it and are not as far along as they would like to be for it. And I'm an understanding guy regardless. It's definitely less that I'm upset at them and more that I'm just disappointed that I didn't get the news that I wanted. And I'll probably continue to say that throughout the video. So the Bastion will only have evolved mode combat. And just as a real quick overview, the new combat's going to be split into Reborn mode and Evolved mode. Reborn mode is going to play a little more classically with all the buttons, and Evolved mode is going to be a little more streamlined. I'm not going to get into details because I don't know enough details. Everything is all kind of theory crafting at this point. But the important thing is any jobs produced as of 8.0 Evercold and further will only be in Evolved mode. They're not developing a Reborn mode for new jobs. Reborn mode is so that they're not taking away the classic gameplay from the jobs that have always had them. The class is going to start at 90 and it will be obtainable in Limsa Lominsa. So I know that when Dark Knight and Astro came out in Heavensward, people were super upset that they couldn't get those classes until they were in Heavensward. I get that. I totally get that. And this is going to be a bit of a hot take. I don't necessarily have a problem with them being accessible from a Realm Reborn right away, but I am kind of tired of every job being accessible in one of the big 3 main cities. If at least they put those in places out in the world outside of the big main cities, even if you want to put it in ARR areas, that's fine. But I'm kind of tired of seeing every single job being accessible in Limsa, in Ul'dah, in Gridania. I think that's so blah. There's so much world, and the world can really stand to be filled out a lot more. And I mean, quite frankly, when it drops, Limsa's already slammed all the time. Now it's going to be so much busier. Ugh. But that's just my opinion. I personally don't think there's an issue with the jobs being locked to the expansions that they're in, but I also get why people don't like that, and I'm not strongly for or against either side there. I just am whatever about it, quite honestly. Lastly, the new Fizz ranged is going to be revealed in Tokyo. There was a couple of hints dropped about it. One of them, people are speculating, came from the trailer. If you watch the trailer, you may see what I mean. I won't elaborate on that again because I said I'm going to try to mind spoilers a little bit. But also, during a particular activity at FanFest, Soken revealed some of the sound effects that the class will have. I have theories around this. I feel like a lot of people have similar theories. I also noted that somebody during NA FanFest mentioned the class names and they were right about Bastion. So it's very possible we also know the name of the second class, but that's all I'm gonna say on that, because if you wanna kind of theory craft and explore on your own, I don't wanna take that away from you. Main scenario, field, and game system updates. Say it again, there will be no story spoilers in this explanation. This is gonna talk about what changes they're looking at for game design. One of the big things that they talked about is a non-fixed story path, which they've experimented with in previous expansions, where you can choose how you approach the story. You will end up at the same conclusion no matter what. It's just the order in which you take it in. That isn't gonna have any major bearing on how things progress, just preference. And the reasoning for that is because they think it'll create interesting discussion if you and another person are at the same point story-wise, but in different sections. And there's not gonna be anything major that happens in those sections that will create a spoiler for people who are not in that section. So they think it's super interesting. And I can see that. I can see the merit in that. I think that's super interesting as well. Some of the concerns that were expressed in chat were how the level syncing is going to look for that, because it all has to be of a similar level in order for that to work. And they do talk about that. They talk about auto content balancing for those sections so that you're able to be level, let's say 108 and the other person be 102 and you can still run things together. They didn't go into that in a lot of detail, but they did talk about it enough to kind of give the understanding that the content will sync to you and you theoretically shouldn't be losing a ton of abilities or anything like that going through it. We're cautious and remaining in a holding pattern while we observe and see how that plays out. In dungeons, that'll be fantastic. In Fates, probably also fantastic. The big concern that was expressed last night, and it's fair, is that in the overworld, it could be kind of tedious if your content synced with the overworld mobs. And that does sound kind of annoying. Something I do enjoy is that once I've exceeded a power level that can take on the monsters in an area, I don't have to worry about them threatening me, both from a time and mechanical perspective, but also from a thematic perspective, right? My aura is now strong enough that these monsters know that attacking me is courting death, so they don't mess with me. And I've done, all these things to reach this level, so these monsters are like, ooh, maybe not. But I don't know if I like the sound of them never being afraid of me after I've, leveled up, so to speak, because it's not like they're out there training or slaying gods. Another big change that they did mention at NA FanFest and elaborated on a little bit more here was character action skins. What this is the animations you do in game. You can unlock action skins to put over those animations to make them look like another something in some capacity, some variance to the normal animation. This time they only showed some variance in the teleport actions. They split it into the normal one that we've been seeing for the last decade and change, a light version and then a dark version. And it looks really cool, and I like what the potential is represented there. They didn't show any class battle action skins, but they did allude to them a bit on how they're going to look and how they're going to bring back some of the older actions to use as animation skins. They're not going to change your DPS. They're not going to change the ability. They're just going to change how it looks. But I think that's cool. More freedom to express yourself, which is going to lead into the next point that I have different thoughts on. Character creation options. There are two parts to this. They did already talk about the amount of expression that you're going to have at FanFest North America. So it already looks exciting for people who love a ton of expression. They've already talked about being able to toggle off certain belts and other layers of pieces of gear if you want the customization there. They've talked about diversifying colors for your actual physical character customization, and adding more options. The thing they touched on this time was customization of the race's core features. The three examples were Lalafels. They're able to remove things like the shading from their noses. Some Lalafels have that, Lalafels have that shaded nose, and you can take that off if that's something you don't like. Mikote, you will now be able to remove the face paint from them. All Raw, you can now customize which horns you have regardless of your gender. The reason that this was intact for so long is because, and Yoshi P says this, that he wanted to keep things lore accurate, and these races would have this specific thing, and that's something that he and a lot of the dev team felt pretty strongly towards. I am more in agreement with this, and this might be a hot take for some people, or some people might agree with me. I'm actually not I'm a fan of, wait. I am a fan of Aura being able to customize their horns. I think that's totally fine. If they, for a moment when they were announcing it, I thought they were gonna say Aura can take off their horns. I was like, That's not okay. Because it's a core part of the race, and I think that it should be there. However, I'm not a fan of the idea of removing the core features of the races just intrinsic to them, the marks that come, the face paint. I feel like half of the joy is being able to work around what your race, I guess, comes stock with, for lack of a better way of putting it, right? Like, this is just an intrinsic feature of being a cowboy, is that you have face paint and potentially those marks there. When I first started playing, I was like, I don't really like this. I don't really like these marks. I would take them off if I could. And this is where I'm kind of speaking counterintuitively to myself. Because it's an intrinsic part of the race, it's something that I just need to work with. And I think that's okay. I think that makes for a more interesting customization and character design to have to work with those built-in intrinsic things rather than just being able to remove them all. I don't think that there's a problem with this, and I'm not saying that I think that there's a problem with this. This is more just me stating my thoughts on the matter. So next we'll move on to the big bullet point that we're talking about is ever evolving content. They have a placeholder title for something called a world raid, and the idea is to make field operation type content occur in the public areas in the world so that they feel less empty. When they explained it, for those of you who play Destiny, it sounded a lot like public events, and they're still kind of working through what that's going to look like, but having things like a world boss that appears. It sounds not too far away from Fates, but a little bit different. I don't feel like they gave enough details to really express what that can mean, but I am cautiously optimistic about it. It sounds like a good thing. And I definitely think that, and I've said this a lot of times, public areas in the game are too empty, and it's a bummer. I think it's a bummer. I think that because they added flying everywhere, which is not how the game started, for those of you who don't know, nobody's ever on the ground because there's no reason to be. You can just get from point A to point B pretty quickly, and nobody stays in those areas because there's no motivation to do so. The world would feel more lively if there was a reason to do that. So that's just me. Auto movement for quests. I'll synthesize this to a very simple. If your quest has a waymark, your character can auto run there, and you don't have to pilot that. That's it. You can take that or leave it. I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a good thing. I think it's a thing. I'm curious to know if that is a good use of development time, I guess, for what value that it could bring. Because I mean, for me, if that's the case, I'll probably teleport somewhere, set the auto run, and then just dick around on my phone until I reach my destination. I will say it does create an interesting case for being able to multitask if you are trying to do other things in between. I think it could be a good use case there. But otherwise, it's very take it or leave it, I think. New difficulty level for raids, 8-man content. Not trials, but raids. So they talked about this at NA FanFest as well, but they're going to be adding a difficulty level that falls right between normal raids and savage raids to kind of help people hedge their bets. The difficulty is estimated to be less than or equal to what an extreme trials difficulty will look like. And the way that the rewards are going to work for this is you will get what they're calling seasonal gear that you can gradually improve while practicing the runs, where Savage will still continue to get the end game Savage gear, just like right off the bat. You don't have to participate in this middle difficulty if you don't want to. You can, after you've completed the normal, you can just jump straight into Savage still, and that's totally fine. I think this is a good change because it does make Savage more approachable for people who want to be able to participate in it, but have a hard time jumping straight into it. I think that's actually a very good change because, as I'm sure you guys know now, I view positively ways to make things more accessible to people. I know a lot of high-end raiders may not necessarily love this change because they're afraid that people are going to be able to jump into Savage and not be at the level that they need to be at yet. But I don't necessarily think that'll be the case. And I mean, it should be for everybody, right? So what are you gonna do? Cross-region player matchmaking. I'm not gonna get into explicit details on this, but basically, if you're in NA, you'll be able to party find or matchmake everybody in NA. If you're in EU, same thing. If you're in Japan, same thing. I think it's already that way in Japan. I'm not gonna say that I know because I don't. So there's not too much to be said about that. It's an exciting change because it means that you'll get your queues to pop easily regardless of what data center you're on. I'll quickly say this here, and then I'm not going to talk about it in any other detail. They announced the theme of the new 8-man raid. If you'd like to know what that is, check out some of the clips. You can definitely find the information online. I'm just not going to be the one to spoil it for you if you want to find it organically. It is really cool. There are concerns that the community has. Some are fair, some are not so fair. But I think the overall consensus is that it's exciting. Regardless of their opinions, they feel like it's exciting. It's potentially exciting. Chaining with that same topic, the gold saucer is also getting a pretty big update. Also a bit spoilery in relation to the last thing, so I'm not going to talk about that either, but you can find it online. The last big one, and the one that I think is fairly exciting, is the Chocobo Companion overhaul. Chocobo Companions have been around for a while, but the system is definitely quite archaic. Most, I think, players just have heal bots where their Chocobo slot is. Everybody's just a heal bot because the Chocobo system is just in need of love, and it's finally getting it, and I think it's exciting. Chocobo breeding is going to be getting an overhaul. The Chocobo system itself is going to be getting an overhaul. And something that I think is super exciting for a lot of people, especially couples out there, or, you know, just two friends, whatever, is you'll be able to go into dungeon content as 2 players and your 2 Chocobos. And that'll be your party of 4. Chocobos will be assigned roles somehow, but they didn't get into details on that. But I do think it's a super exciting change. I think the little image of the 2 Chocobos with the 2 homies in poses, I think definitely big sold me. The theme of it just looked really cool. I was like, that's so cool. It's a simple thing and you can ignore it entirely, but I think it's a cool addition as a new way for people to be able to play the game. That more or less big covers the big things that were new to this FanFest that weren't necessarily announced in North America. One thing that I want to touch on, and there's a few small topics that fall into this, is their approach to some of the adjustments to design, which is looking at being more friendly to people with a busy lifestyle. For those who are not necessarily able to, you know, grind it out every day to attain gear or whatever rewards that they're looking for. So as mentioned in NA FanFest, they are shifting things to a weekly model, not a daily model. You won't necessarily have weeklies. You will have a list of various types of content that you can complete to achieve particular goals. These goals haven't necessarily been elaborated on, but they're pretty much just shifting into a weekly format, and I think that's great. As somebody who does have a lot of constraints on my time, I am very excited to be able to focus on weeklies. I skip dailies a lot because I'm like, I just can't get on today, right? For the working adult, sometimes working your 9 to 5, getting off, commuting, cooking, errands, you gotta sleep because tomorrow you gotta do it all again. Missing a day can feel tough. Heaven forbid anything outside of the norm jumps in and you miss multiple days, right? So they're shifting to a weekly model to be friendly to ever shifting busy lifestyles so you can complete things in a week. And as a nice bonus to that, if you miss a week and the subsequent week you're able to catch up, then you have an opportunity to complete the previous week that you missed. So that's essentially a 2-week window to help you clear things within your, you know, again, ever busy lifestyle. And a lot of the things that they're changing do show a friendliness towards this. There's also a friendliness towards offering more diversity in how you play the game. Currently, there's very much like once you've cleared a certain type of content, there's not a ton of benefit to clearing that content again outside of maybe Wondrous Tales, maybe. But for people who enjoy those other types of content, this will be a good encouragement to get people to engage in them more, because now your weekly list will consist of all kinds of different levels or experiences in the game that you can participate in order to achieve a similar result, which I think is phenomenal. There are a lot of assumptions that are going around on the internet around this. There's not a ton of details that's been released by the team, so take most things you see with a grain of salt, because we don't actually know. This was one of those things that I'd hoped they would talk a little bit more about during this FanFest, and they did not. But in this particular topic, and probably one of the big ones that I think is getting a weird take from a lot of the community, and I know which part of the community is, and I kind of know why, is iLvl syncing. I'll be upfront and say that I think iLvl syncing is exciting. Here's what it means. If you have a class at 110, because that's going to be the level cap, with iLvl 710 gear, if you get another class up to level 110, you can sync their iLvl. So if you're, in my case, if my Gunbreaker is level 110 and I have 710 gear, then when my Astro reaches 110, I can sync it and my Astro will also have 710 gear. This is meant to save you from the gear grind for being able to play alternative classes when running through different kinds of content. This seems very geared at high-end content, which makes a ton of sense. And to clarify something, this only brings them up to the eye level. When it comes to substats, materia, and things like that, that will still need to be grinded out in order for you to optimize. You cannot copy the materia scores and substats over to your astrologian or, you know, second tank, whatever class you choose. Those will still need to be done individually. This isn't being received universally positively because people are worried about what that could mean for the end game. A lot of these concerns are coming from people who primarily run high-end content. I think it's a positive thing. One, it creates accessibility. Two, calling back to that whole daily life time constraint thing, I think it's actually really important. I'm gonna use myself as an example here. I do run Savage content. I enjoy Savage content. I don't have time to grind out everything that I need on all of my classes that I want to run it in. I've mentioned this before, but I have at least one class per role that I know how to play well. But when I run through Savage, I focus on my Gunbreaker because I have the time to grind out one class and then work on other things or not be able to play necessarily. So I grind out my Gunbreaker, I run through Savage with Gunbreaker. If I want to go in as an Astro, I can't because I don't grind out the gear for that. Because I don't necessarily have the time for that because of the way the current structure is. Now, I'll be able to take that Gunbreaker gear, duplicate it over to my Astro, and start considering running that through as well without the initial grind of having to get the gear, because anybody who gear grinds for endgame knows it takes a long time to get best in slot. It takes a long time, and best in slot per class is really difficult. So this change to me is such a good thing. And I know a lot of the people who are like, this isn't a great thing, are the people who can no life the game. And that's not an insult. I don't consider no lifing an insult. A well spent Saturday to me is no lifing a video game. So don't take that as a dig. It's not meant that way. But people who can do that are typically the ones who are the most critical of this because they're only seeing it from the perspective of how it's going to affect them and not necessarily where the positive can be, the net positive can be for that. Because at the end of the day, in order for you to optimize, you're still going to have to do the things required to do that. Materia grinding is going to be materia grinding. It's still going to be very hard if you want to get optimal. So I think that this is going to be a very positive change, and I'm hoping that more people will see it that way. I'm sure a lot of people who aren't able to grind out their alternate classes will see it that way. I am excited to be able to more accessibly run content with my friends in classes that are not just Gunbreaker or Tank. I'm excited to be able to fill or flex because it's hard for me to do that right now. If I only have to grind out one class and then I can spend time focusing on materia, I have a better chance of getting optimal than I do right now, where I can only play one class because I just don't have the time to grind out the alternatives. It seems like a lot of the changes, the eye level syncing, the auto running, the weekly structure, are definitely geared towards making the game more friendly to people with busy lives. And I think that that's a good thing. And I think whenever we're looking at new features and keeping that lens in mind, I think that it's a net positive and that there should be some grace given there because it is a good thing. I'm excited for the new raid theme being announced, which again, I'm not going to share because I think that theme will excite a lot of people and it will bring in more players to the game, which is exciting. But I do think it's important to try and give the dev team grace because they really are trying their best with the player base in mind. They're never going to be able to please everybody and not everybody simultaneously, but remember, you'll get your turn. If you're a high-end raider, you'll get your turn. If you're a casual player, you'll get your turn. Not every turn can be for you, and not everything that isn't for you should be shit on, for lack of a better word, because it isn't necessarily for you. I am encouraging of any positive change for the game globally or geared at particular groups because it's just exciting. I'm the type of person who plays every type of content. I don't consider myself a hardcore raider, but I do like to endgame raid. That is something that I get a lot of joy out of. I don't necessarily consider myself a casual player, but I still play every type of casual content. I'm very much an all-rounder, so it's always my turn. I tend to benefit from any positive change because I play everything, because I enjoy every aspect of the game, mostly. But if it's not your turn, that's okay. Don't be mean about it. Just wait till your turn. Your time will come. All of us get a turn, even if we're not all me. Anyway, this is a little different from my usual videos because this is kind of more of a discussion around FanFest. I do intend to have a few more discussion videos on the horizon. Not everything will be necessarily geared towards new players and tutorials. If you've watched my dungeon speed video, it'll be a lot of kind of stuff like that. If you liked this video, don't hesitate to hit the like and subscribe button because it really helps the channel to grow and it encourages me to keep working harder to bring you better content. If you want to discuss in a little more detail on the things in FanFest, like I said, leave comments below because I pay attention to all of them, or you can join the Discord and we can discuss in real time because I also think that that's a great place for more immediate reactions because I'm very active in my Discord. With that, thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next one.